Thank you for listening to the Family Unit Radio Show, which airs Fridays at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central, and 7 p.m. Pacific. Listen to the show only on the Resilient Christian Radio.
That is really a big concern, especially for Christian families today. Sometimes us really think that we are doing the will of the Lord when we don't really understand His direction in our lives. I'm going to give you an example of what I'm talking about here. Now, as a family, we all know we have different challenges that we have to face. A lot of it have to deal with our children, how we raise them. And nowadays, we see how the public school is doing, and especially in the secular world, they are trying to change the dynamic of how they teach our children. And I want to ask this a great question. And this has been a huge debate even within the people of the body of Christ, which it shouldn't have never been a debate in the first place, but it is. But it's going on as we speak. This debate is also referring to a lot of people who are doing this as a recourse of their family, especially their children. And this is what I'm talking about here. What we talk about is the public school arena. And we see, even from the aspect of everything going on, that the public schools are attacking the family values. And our children is being indoctrinated every single day. Every course of the day, every 24, just name it. Almost 8 to 10 hours a day being indoctrinated on things that you and your family are not really teaching at home. But of course, we are conditioned because now they put rules that you have to send your kids into the public school. But that's not always the case. We do have an alternative, and that is homeschooling. And homeschooling does work. It has its very, very values. That's really a redirection that it is still for families to do, especially for the people of the home to teach their children in the way they should go and never depart from it. So what that really means that as a person, what can you do? As a Christian, what can you do? And this is something that's been going on for a very long time. Now, this whole month, we are going to attack these things, and we're going to continue on this radio network, on this radio show, on the Family Unit Radio Show, speak on the values about family, especially with homeschool. As school is about to turn down and everything's about to wind up for kids to be, go to their summer vacation, I want to really touch on these various values so you as a family will look at the fact that God has given you the responsibility to teach your children. Now, I know that a lot of people will say about single parents, they use all kinds of excuses to try to say it's too expensive to support this ethnic group. I'm a single parent, or I don't have the time to do this, and the list goes on. Well, does God say, now you will say this, I would do anything for our children. Well, how come you can't do this for your children? Even it's biblical, and God knows that His word is going to be instilled into them. And then you say that you want to really bring up your child in the admiration of the Lord. Why are you going to bring a child up in the admiration of the Lord if you keep sending them into a pagan-stricken schools in our country? And I say this because the system is really doing a number. And I'm going to tell you, it's not just a left wing and a right wing. It is the secular or the atheistic aspects of this kind of system versus Christianity. And this is where we as believers need to come to grips about and really stand for what God had to say. Now, let's go ahead and get into this whole parameter of this whole thing, because I want to really touch some bases on here about this. And this is how we need to go into this. Should Christians homeschool their children? This is what we have to do. Should we do this? That's question number one. Now, the question is whether Christians should homeschool their children is one of the many family wrestle with. The Bible teaches us that the children are a gift from the Lord, specially created to His pleasure and divine purpose. That's in Psalms 127 verses 3 to 5, and also Psalms 139 verses 13 to 16. Now, God has entrusted us with our children for a very short time, during which parents have the responsibility to train and instruct, to nurture, and to discipline them, as well as overseeing their education. You can look that up in Ephesians chapter 6, verse 4. And this is where people really, really get hung up on. So you're trying to send their kids into a public education system, right? Think about it. You try to send your kids into a public education system. Let's read what Ephesians chapter 6 verse 4 in the Amplified says. It says, Fathers, do not provoke your children into anger. Do not exasperate them to the point of resentment with demands that are trivial to unreasonable and humiliating and abusive, nor be showing favoritism or indifference of any of them, but bring them up tenderly with love kindness in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Now, I wanted to stop right here just a minute and come to this point that you need to understand here. When we talk about homeschooling, we talk about your family involvement into you, your children, everyone involved, and especially have God as the center. This is the key elements of God looking and putting a sympathetic understanding on what He wants the family to do. So what we need to do is to come to grips on this whole matter that you think that homeschool is hard. It really isn't. Now think about it. If you really are saved or you are a child of God, here is where faith comes in. Faith is the only thing that will get you through homeschooling. And this is when you're thinking that, well, I can't do all these things. But let's go into this whole detail, and I want you to really have a whole heart to think about this whole matter. Now, it is imperative that Christian parents teach their children the Word of God from a young age, showing them how to incorporate it into their daily lives, trusting continually in God. Spiritual training is even more important than academic training. Let's just think about that for a minute. Spiritual training is even more important than academic training. Now, and it doesn't happen by accident. It must be purposefully and habitual. The question is, which mode of education is best accomplish these goals? Now, there are many excellent reasons to decide to educate children at home. As an alternative to public schooling, the freedom parents have to choose in homeschool curriculum allows for academic subjects to be taught through a biblical world view. Let's stop right here for a minute. A biblical world view. Now, I want you to think about this for a minute. What does that really, really entails? Now, we talk about biblical worldview from different perspectives from one show called the Biblical Editorial Review. And we've been hammering over and over again about what does that really mean. What is the biblical worldview? And sometimes a lot of people don't know what that is. But let's go ahead and I'm going to put this whole thing into a perspective, and hopefully it will hammer it into your heart here. Now, a worldview refers to a comprehensive conception on the world from a specific standpoint. A Christian worldview, then, is a comprehensive conception of the world from a Christian standpoint. An individual worldview is big in his big picture, a harmony of all beliefs about the world. And it is his way of understanding the reality. Now, one's worldview is based on making daily decisions and therefore extremely important. Now, thinking about it this way here. Now, a personifical worldview is taught like naturalism and things like that. And they ask all these other questions here. But let's look at this in a Christian perspective. A Christian worldview is, on the other hand, answer these three questions biblically. Where are God's creation designed to govern the world and fellowship with Him? That's in Genesis 1:27-28 and Genesis 2:15. Now, here's another one. We sin against God. We sin against God and subject to a whole world to be cursed. Genesis 3. And God Himself has redeemed the world through the sacrifice of His Son, Jesus Christ. Genesis 3:15 and Luke 19:10. And will one day restore creation to its former present state. Isaiah 65:17-25. A Christian worldview leads us to believe in moral absolutes, miracles, human dignity, and the possibility of redemption. That is a Christian worldview. Now, I want you to think about what I'm saying here when it comes to a Christian worldview. This is the main reason what we need to be doing to teach our children the way of the Lord. Now, the school system was not going to tell you the truth about this at all. The school system's main objective is to train up your child to be more like the world. Remember, you send your child to a public school where people from different walks of life coming in and put their beliefs onto your child. Do you always wonder why you and your child are always arguing? Well, it's because their belief system has formally changed from what you believe. You are saved and God has rescued you from the pit of hell. But your child is not looking like that to you. And you're wondering why. Why am my child is fighting me tooth and nail? Why am I arguing with my child about different things going on in life? How come that I'm always the one have to go around and tiptoe and make sure that I don't upset him or her? And this is your child here. This is your child that is in your household that you are raising each and every single day. And you are fighting your child to believe to this particular worldview. Now, is this going on in your household? Now, I want you to think about that before you go a little bit further here. Is this been going on in your household for quite some time? And you know that what's going on in the school system is really, really very secular and very, very predominantly anti-God and anti-Christian. But this is why their child is fighting you, because of that belief. That belief. It's almost like a certain kind of spirit has lived and predominate and circulate inside them to think and do the things of the world. Now, our little children are not saved. And you cannot go around saying that I'm teaching my child to be a Christian. But how are you teaching them to be a Christian if they don't understand what it really means to be in the true salvation of the Lord? Now, you could teach them and lead them to.
Check us out at Facebook at RCR Network. And also on Twitter at RCR_network. And our website at rcrnetwork.com.